Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. Today we are taking a really deep, structured dive into a topic that has just completely divided the feline world, the Munchkin cat. We're going to use the historical data to unpack everything from their highly unique genetics to the incredibly fierce ethical debate surrounding them. Let's get into it. You know, when you think of a controversial animal, you're probably picturing some kind of wild hybrid, right? Or maybe a super exotic imported breed. But the subject of this intense, worldwide breeding controversy is actually a completely harmless-looking, short-legged house pet. It's such a fascinating juxtaposition. On one hand, you have this highly sought-after, adorable companion, but on the other, an absolute lightning rod for intense debates in the breeding community. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the lowrider cat. So Munchkins are actually surprisingly small, usually weighing in somewhere between 5 and 10 pounds. They feature a really distinct wedge-shaped head with these beautiful walnut-shaped eyes. But hey, do not let that short stature fool you for a second. These cats are incredibly curious. They'll actually sit straight up on their haunches, kind of like a little prairie dog, just to get a better view of their surroundings. And physically, because of that super low center of gravity, they are literally built for racing and cornering around your house at highly impressive speeds. Temperament-wise, they are extremely social, playful, and totally affectionate with humans, kids, dogs, other cats, you name it. What they might lack in jumping height, they absolutely make up for with pure intelligence and unyielding determination. Now, when it comes to their coats, the Munchkin is highly adaptable. They basically come in two distinct all-weather varieties. First, you've got the short-haired Munchkins. They have a medium-length, semi-plush coat, and they're pretty low maintenance. You're really just looking at a weekly brushing with a fine comb to get rid of loose fur. But then, on the flip side, you have the long-haired Munchkins. They boast this gorgeous, semi-long, silky coat. Because of that extra length, you're going to need to step it up and brush them up to 3 times a week, just to keep those pesky mats and tangles from forming. Moving on to section 2, the Blackberry Dynasty. This whole saga officially kicks off back in 1983 in Rayville, Louisiana. A woman named Sandra Hochenettle discovered 2 extremely unusual short-legged pregnant cats. They were terrified, basically hiding out from a bulldog under a pickup truck. Well, Sandra rescued them, noting they kind of looked like a cross between a ferret and a dachshund. She gave the gray one Blueberry away, but she kept the black one. She named her Blackberry. And right there, completely unknowingly, Blackberry became the founding mother of an entire feline dynasty. It is amazing how fast it spread. From just that single stray, a widespread population quickly emerged. Blackberry had a litter of kittens, and among them was this little short-legged male named Toulouse. Sandra gave Toulouse to her friend Kayla France over in Monroe, Louisiana. And well, that is where the magic really happened. Toulouse became an outdoor cat and, let's just say, enthusiastically contributed to the local gene pool. Within a really short time, there was this whole flourishing population of these short-legged cats slinking around the property. As a fun fact, the official name of the breed was eventually inspired by the little people in The Wizard of Oz. But here is where it gets really interesting. While Blackberry birthed the modern breed in the 1980s, the genetic anomaly itself actually occurs naturally, and it's been popping up globally for decades. We're talking a British vet documenting the short leg mutation in England way back in the 1930s. Then it was reported in Russia in the 1950s, and cited again in New England in the 1970s. So while 1983 Louisiana is the dawn of the Munchkin breed, the short-legged trait has been quietly traveling the world for the better part of a century, ultimately leading to Tika accepting the breed into its new program in 1994. Which brings us to section 3, genetics of the short leg. The absolute crucial piece of the puzzle here is the dominant gene. You see, the short-legged trait in Munchkins isn't just some recessive fluke, it's a dominant genetic mutation. That means a kitten only needs to inherit one single copy of the mutated gene from just one parent to express that short-legged characteristic. And this biological reality, it completely dictates exactly how these cats have to be bred. Because of that dominant gene, breeding Munchkins is quite literally a matter of strict life-or-death genetic rules. Step 1. You have to mate one Munchkin with a non-Munchkin domestic cat. This is absolutely essential to ensure genetic diversity. Step 2. The resulting kittens can then safely inherit that one copy of the dominant gene, being born as healthy, short-legged Munchkins. But step 3 is the absolute non-negotiable red line for breeders. You must never, ever mate 2 Munchkins together. Research clearly shows that embryos inheriting 2 copies of this mutated gene are simply not viable. They will not develop. It is a biological impossibility, which means the breed requires incredibly careful ethical human management. All right, section 4, a controversial breed. The divide in the cat fancy world over this breed is just stark. On one side of the aisle, you have the International Cat Association, or TICA. Their genetics chief, Dr. Solveig Pluger, examined these cats, deemed them physically sound, and TICA officially granted them championship status in 2003. But on the other side, practically every other major cat fancy association out there has flatly refused to recognize them. They point to long-term health questions and aggressively challenge the fundamental ethics of purposefully breeding a genetic mutation that actively alters a cat's skeletal structure. And the backlash, it was incredibly severe, and critics really didn't hold back. Words like freak and abomination were thrown around quite liberally to describe the breed. During the early days of this controversy, Munchkin breeders were totally given the cold shoulder, and some owners were even actively kicked out of competitive cat shows. The sheer outrage from traditionalists was just intense. In fact, when TICA officially recognized Blackberry's descendants as a breed, one veteran cat show judge actually resigned their position in active protest. They publicly called the Munchkin an affront to any breeder with ethics. That is how absolute the dividing line was in this community. Yet, despite all of that drama, the public has definitely spoken with their wallets. We're talking thousands of dollars. That is what a single Munchkin kitten can cost today. In spite of the heavy controversy, or honestly, maybe because the controversy gave them so much free publicity, the global demand for these cats just keeps rising steadily, pushing prices to an absolute premium.
Let's pivot to Section 5, caring for a Munchkin.
If you're actually thinking about bringing one of these cats into your home, we absolutely have to look at the health data. Thanks to modern DNA panels, we can screen for a few specific genetic conditions. First up is factor XII deficiency. Now, this is an asymptomatic blood factor deficiency that causes prolonged clotting times on lab tests, though thankfully it doesn't generally cause abnormal bleeding. Next is progressive retinal atrophy, a very serious disorder causing the degeneration of the light-sensing retina, which results in vision loss. And finally, the big general risk, obesity. This affects roughly 1 in 3 cats in the US. For a Munchkin with those tiny short legs, carrying extra weight is incredibly dangerous. It drastically increases the risks of arthritis, diabetes, and heart problems. Understanding this stuff is absolutely crucial to keeping them healthy for years to come. So, to keep these little lowriders in top condition, your daily care routine is vital. You've got to feed them a high-quality, life-stage-appropriate diet and take real care to measure out their meals. A super important rule of thumb? Limit those treats to just 10% of their daily calories to fight off that severe obesity risk. Physical maintenance is a must, too. You need to trim their nails monthly so they don't curl back and damage their paw pads, and always provide a scratching post so they can manage their own claws naturally. Oh, and don't forget to brush their teeth daily. It's a vital step for their overall dental hygiene and systemic health. So that brings us to our final big question. Does the sheer joy of the Munchkin outweigh the controversy? On one side, you have the undeniable charm, playfulness, and affection of these entirely unique little cats. But on the other, you have to weigh that directly against the heavy ethical debates and those really complex genetic realities. It's a fascinating question and one that every single cat enthusiast has to answer for themselves. Thank you so much for exploring the complex and captivating world of the Munchkin cat with me in today's Explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.